Hello guys, Hon MMA back here with another prediction video, this time for UFC Fight Night, Medić versus Rodriguez. It's a big card. It's one that I think we've all kind of, underlooked because Medić is one of the bigger prospects at welterweight. And I feel like Rodriguez, is a big enough name where a win over him still can put you into the next echelon of the division. Like you think of his drama he had recently, you think of some of his fights he's had in the past. I mean, he's been on pay-per-view cards. He's fought Ian Gary. That was probably the biggest win Ian Gary had at a pivotal point in his career with a head kick KO. And then he fought Gastelum, got a bit unlucky there. And then all of the problems he's had in the news, with his arrest in Mexico. He's a cholo, he's a bit of a bad boy, he likes to think. So, he's been in prison, he's been in lots of trouble with the law, he's border hopped, but the other way, weirdly, not the way you'd think he'd border hop. So he's a crazy guy, man. And yeah, he's a very big test, I think, for a young prospect because he has got volume and he has got good cardio. So we're going to see how Medić handles that. And we're going to go in the first fight on this card, Vlasto Seppo versus Gilbert Urbina. Now, Urbina looks decent to me. Like, I genuinely think he could have a future in the division. Like, he's got good hands. He's really interesting with his grappling. He tends to throw, like, a lot of shapes when he's there. Like, he doesn't just go and try and learn mount or like, try and get half guard. He tries to really get finishing sequences going. He tries to get positions what can lead to a finish, and I think that's what you need to do in any kind of like main card spot, even on like a lower level apex card. Like, you need to get a finish that stands out if you're going to get to the next level, to the bigger fights and the bigger spots, the pay-per-views. And he does go for finishes, so his finishing potential is something that is probably going to be a factor in this fight, because Vlasto Seppo, he don't get finishes. Like, he's a decision merchant, and he really does not take chances. And I feel like when you're at this lower level, finishing potential is the most important thing. And I think the one hero we're looking at for that is going to be Gilbert Urbina. So I'm going to go with him to get that finish, because I don't think Seppo is going to be able to compete with him in those aspects. And I think when he's getting pieced up on the feet, he's going to try and stall, get him against the fence. He's going to try and jab his way out of trouble and kind of clinch his way out of trouble. When you're fighting someone who's going to be aggressive, getting out of that clinch, throw elbows, throw hooks, dirty box in there, you're not going to be able to get your own way. And Seppo does not have the ability to go high level, fast pace for a full 3 rounds, in my opinion. He doesn't have that kind of dog in him. I don't think he's ever going to have done that in the way that I think Urbina can do that at this level. This is Seppo's probably highest level opponent he's had, and he's never been tested as far as going a pace over 3 rounds, even though he's had a lot of decisions. It's been on his own terms, not against people as explosive and volume heavy as Gilbert Urbina. So I'm going with Urbina to get the late second round TKO against the fence. I think he's going to out volume him. He's going to out dog him. He's going to make him back up. He's going to make him curl up against the fence and get pounded out for a TKO in the first. And I think Urbina is a prospect as well. I do think he's got a future in the UFC, because he's got that raw dog and raw X factor where he wants to put a seal on fights. He doesn't just want to decision his way into the UFC. He wants to make sure he's getting those bonuses, and that's why Dana White has upped those bonuses, so we see finishes. And I think we're going to get one here. Moving on to the second fight on the main card. Dusko Todoric versus Robert Valentin. Now, Robert Valentin, Ultimate Fighter alum. I think it was actually on the 2024 edition of the Ultimate Fighter, if I'm not mistaken. And he really was hyped, like, after winning that. We really thought he was going to be a bit of a prospect. And he lost his first fight. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world, I feel like, because he kind of, I think, was a bit overconfident after that. Like, he was coming in with, like, that cockiness. Like, people comparing him to, like, when McGregor first come on the scene, he had like the mullet, he was feeling himself, he kind of had a bit of cockiness to him in the face-offs, and on the show itself as well, and he got exposed in that fight as not ready for prime time, let's be honest. Like, he got beaten pretty embarrassingly. Like, I think people forget that Valentin was kind of one of the most hyped guys we've had in the Ultimate Fighter for a while. Like, a lot of the Ultimate Fighter contestants haven't been the best level of prospects, but Valentin actually had some hype coming into the UFC. I mean, the guy in the same, like the season before who won was blooming Holloway, was like a 37-year-old prospect. Like, this guy is young and middle, heavyweight guy, middleweight. We really, people were having hope for him, and he lost that fight, and since then he's trained, he's won, and he's coming back to his biggest fight yet, because Todorovic is actually quite a decent like level prospect himself. He isn't like, he's someone we've seen get wins in the UFC, and we've also seen him have good performances, and I feel like he's gonna be the favourite in this fight. Like Todorovic is on a streak, and he's not lost in the UFC as of yet, whereas Robert Valentin has lost his debut, and he's not really had the breakout performance where he's finished someone impressively. Like, he's just been a typical middleweight kind of level fighter who fights really, really kind of steady, doesn't really throw anything crazy, doesn't really throw a pace on people. He kind of just plods along, as we associate with a lot of these guys at the very top. It's a bit like at heavyweight, only the very top guys have any ability. In middleweight it's not quite as bad, but only the very top guys have true like elite skill. And I feel like Robert Valentin has it in his locker. He just needs to get that confidence back. And I feel like his second fight was just get his confidence back and get a win. Like we see with many fighters after a bad performance. Paddy Pimblett, when he fought Tony Ferguson, kind of got the decision win, dominant, but it wasn't his best performance. And then after that, he kicked on. I feel we could see a similar thing from Valentin here, where we see him kick on with a big win here. And I think he's going to upset the apple cart here and actually beat the favourite in Todorovic. I think I sound Dutch and I'm wearing the orange, you know what I mean? Robert Valentin's getting the win. He's going to get a decision victory, but it's going to be more impressive. I don't think he's going to knock out Todorovic. I don't think he can do that, because he isn't a bum, Todorovic, and I feel like when you're fighting someone on the apex and they're not quite elite, but they're not quite like a can, you need to have a very special performance to get them out of there, because at middleweight we see a lot of decisions, and I feel like Valentin is more of a volume guy in general. So I don't see him getting the finish, but I see him getting a decision in impressive fashion. I'd compare it to like maybe like when Ian Gary got his decision against Neil Magny, where it was almost as good as a knockout or a finish, because he had that much of a comfortable win. I feel like we could see that here, because I feel like Valentin can really queen sweep this and get a 30-27 in impressive fashion and make it so that we do start thinking this guy is back on the wagon now. And I feel like if he wins it in impressive fashion, even though he ain't going to get a finish, I think he can start to build into the guy that we know he can be, because he's still young for this division, man. And even on the Ultimate Fighter, he was so much more aggressive, but I feel like he's going to do it in this fight. But I just think Todoric's good enough to not get finished, and I think you've got to remember Todorovic is also the kind of fighter who he doesn't take risks himself. Like I mentioned in the previous fight with Seppa, like he's like very, very well fundamentally schooled. He doesn't really take many chances, but he is on a win streak. But his wrestling's not as good as Valentin's, and I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. I think his technique's good, but I think his wrestling is where he struggles, and I think he's going to get out wrestled, I'd just say outpowered, but not so much on the feet, but just in clinches and grappling situations, and in like separating from clinches. I can see Valentin able to maybe land some nasty shots coming out of those exchanges. And also, I think the big thing in this fight will be the length of Valentin. He lands a lot of leg kicks, and I feel like he can stay out of range landing those, whereas if Todorovic wants to kind of come inside, he can get caught by a lot of those nasty right hands and nasty jabs and nasty knees if they're in exchanges in the clinch. It's really hard for someone like a Todovic, who's more like of a boxing stance guy, to fight someone who's got more of a loose style, which is how Valentin fights. He's so loose in there. I feel like he'd lost a bit of that after his defeat, but I feel like he's regained it in his comeback fight since, and I think he's going to show out here and get a decision win in outpointing the not too bad Todovic here, who it'll be a decent win to finally get his confidence full level to come and kick on. So I'm going with 3-round 30-27 win for our mate Robert, and I think he'll do it in a very clean and impressive fashion. Let's go, Rob. Moving on to the next fight on the main card, Alexander Rakic versus Marcin Tybura. Rakic, what a decline, man. He's gone from fighting Yuri Prohaska at the biggest event, probably one of the biggest events in the past 10 years in UFC, to now fighting Marcin Tybura, not even in a co-main event at heavyweight. Like that has got to be the biggest 2-year downfall we've seen, possibly since Israel Adesanya after he beat Pereira in that impressive win in 2023. Like, it really has been sad to watch. Rakic, since he started calling Yuri an alcoholic and talking to the GOAT himself, I feel like he's had that bad karma come on him, man. These samurai spirits have took him and said, you're not going to get away with speaking to the GOAT Yuri Prohaska like that. And now look at him. He's fighting Marcin Tybura, possibly one of the most boring fighters in the heavyweight division, who lays on people. Literally one of the only guys I know who submitted someone by shoving his man boob in the face. He literally has a mother's milk victory on his record. He did win by head kick once, Tybura, which kind of like worries me in this fight, because Tybura, if there's anything striking wise he is good at, he does throw a nasty head kick, and Rakic got hit with a lot of those in his fight against Prohaska. And I know that it's different, I know, but if he gets too overconfident trying to grapple here, I feel like number one, he could get out-strengthed in this fight, but number two, he could get overly tired, fatigued, and then if Tybura can just start possibly landing some shots, he could finish him on the feet, man. And I know that it'd shock you all that I say that it's the possibility of a knockout in this fight for Tybura with a head kick, but I'm telling you, man, Rakic does dip a lot. And if Tybura scored an head kick KO here, I genuinely would be on the bandwagon again, because there was a time when Tybura had beaten after the Aspinall fight, he was on a bit of a streak, that I actually started to think he was a decent level. And then he got beat, obviously, but he actually got beat by, and he beat Mick Parkin, actually, the legendary Mick. Oh no, Delija, like he even like against Waldo Cortez Acosta, like that full camp lost like 2 fights like that month. I remember at that time thinking Waldo Cortez Acosta and Tybura could actually be a really, really good fight, and then he went on downhill spiral. But look, he's a good fighter, but I think Rakic will out-grapple him, because I do think in the end he's going to use his superior just positioning, not so much his strength, but his technique on the ground. And I think he'll be able to actually possibly get a ground and pound TKO from exhaustion, because he's going to have a lot better cardio for the grappling exchanges. And I think he could actually TKO Tybura, because he's been finished like that in his career a few times. So I'm going with a ground and pound stoppage from Alexander Rakic on Tybura, and I think he's going to do it by first round. I think he's actually going to gas early Tybura, because I think he is going to try and do what I just mentioned and try and win on the feet, because Rakic is known for being a bit sus on the feet, and the power at heavyweight, Tybura's not going to be as worried facing the light heavyweight, so he's going to want to maybe throw the shots for a bit more venom. That's going to gas him out, and then they're going to have exchanges late in the first, 4 minutes in, and I feel like end of the first, he's going to elbow him, nasty ground and pound, he's going to start landing some nasty, possibly even some like nasty elbows to the body when they may be switching up the grappling transitions, maybe like possibly when he gets into that like half guard position, he might start just throwing a few of them digs into the body, and then that's when he'll secure the mount and land those nasty hammer fist, ground and pound elbows, 12 to 6s, cut open that porcupine face and get the win in the first to make himself announced as a top 15 heavyweight. That's the level we're at, guys, these days at heavyweight. Marcin Tybura gets you into the top 15. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, guys. Jan Blachowicz versus Navratil Sterling, man. I haven't seen this guy on my sheet for a bit, and I missed him because this guy, when I tell you, he's an apex warrior, an apex predator. He might be the original apex predator, man. There was a guy. It was a time, one point, where this guy was on my piece of paper every 2 months, mate. I swear down, this guy used to fight every other month. Like, I remember, like, saying this guy's name so many times in these prediction videos. I honestly thought, have I got the wrong guy in this fight? Is Alger fighting? Like this guy, honestly, he does fight and he keeps active and he takes on anyone. And he's finally got to a position where he's made his way to a main card on an Apex, which I never thought would be impressive and like a career-defining moment, like a co-main at Apex. But it is, man, because this guy really has worked his way up. Like, no one's cared about him. And he is good. And you know what? He's fighting a former champion, a former guy who was main evented against Israel Adesanya and beat him in a double title, like, you know, for the double champ status at the time for Adesanya. This is a really cool thing for me having this channel to see. Like, Sterling deserves this, man. He fights and he's good. Like, he just has gone under the radar because he's not the most like flashy guy, but I really do hope he can put in a good performance here. And I think Blachowicz is looking still like a top guy, because look at him against Ulberg, man, who's now the champ. Literally was a close fight. I could argue, I think that he got robbed, Blachowicz, back in London then. So Blachowicz could have easily had a win over the guy who's now the champion, you know. This is a really big fight for an Apex to have as just a co-main. Like really, really impressive that we're seeing this. And I'm a big fan of Jan. So this is tough for me. I'm going with Jan to win. I think Sterling, he doesn't have that elite X factor to him, but he's got a few wins. He's been on the prelims. He's been in the lower spots. And I think even though we're saying co-main of an Apex, so what? This will be a big moment for he's fighting a legend of the division, man. I mean, this might be the only time I can remember I've ever seen a legend of a division fighting in a co-main of a Apex card. So, you know, it's going to be a big ask, and I think he's going to get beat by decision. I don't think Jan really knocks people out anymore, unfortunately. I think he's too worried, I think, about overextending and possibly gassing out. Like I said in one of the previous fights, like with Tabora, I believe, like these guys, light heavyweight to light heavyweight, like the gas very easily, and if they miss a few shots, it can be bad. It's going to be bad. And I think if he starts over winging shots, Navajo is good enough technically to actually avoid getting KO'd. I think if Jan fights how he has fought against people like Ankalaev and against people like Ulberg, more technical, I think he gets the win here pretty simple and easy. So I'm going to go with a Jan Blachowicz. I'm going to go with 29-28 because I think Sterling will win possibly one of the later rounds, a bit like in the Ulberg fight, how Ulberg kind of nicked it towards the end. It got more comfortable as it went on. Like, he won the second, just, people say, and then the third he did kind of win clearly. I think this will be similar, but I think he won't have quite as much ability to land as what Ulberg had, and I don't think the shots are going to have as much respect from Blachowicz as the ones from Ulberg, where he's going to actually be hesitant to throw that leg kick in case he gets countered with a straight. You know, I think he hasn't got that concern with Sterling, and I think he's going to put a good name for himself, which I hope he does, but he's not going to put out a performance that can beat a former champ. He just isn't that level, man. He's kind of like on that, who can I compare him to? Up and coming, like Mike Mallet level. I feel like Sterling is like Mike Mallet level of his division. Like, he isn't going to be a champion, but he can beat guys. I feel like he has a future in the top 15, but this is a mad step up to give him. And I think Blachowicz is still going to have enough to be a bigger, stronger, like, presence in the octagon is the best way I can put it. Just to have that aura, that just slight X factor and edge in the fight, and I think he will win a tight decision, but a clear one, where the rounds he won was good, like, and solid easy to score, but just Sterling's still putting in a good performance. It's just not quite got that extra thing you need to beat someone of the level of a Jan. And I think he's going to show his kicks a lot in this fight, and he's going to also, I think, maybe wobble Nevajo coming in, but Nevajo will be good enough to get his wits about him and refocus and regroup. But I think he's going to land maybe a few little shots to the body as well, because I know that Jan can be a bit, you know, potent to getting hit there, because he does have that kind of high guard, and he does also throw a lot of leg kicks, which can open you up because you switch stances naturally sometimes with leg kicks, and that can lead you to getting countered with the other kick from the opposite fighter. And I feel like if he can just land a few chopping body kicks, he could slow down Jan. But other than that, I think Jan's going to have enough strength to get through that and win by decision, by landing the more nasty shots and last longer, like arms reach, longer limbs. I just think he's going to be able to be good enough to do that. But when he's throwing leg kicks, I think Sterling needs to counter with the opposite leg with body shots to show that he can hurt him possibly, or even counter him with maybe the odd jab. I don't think he needs to overextend with a shot of his own with his straight, because if he lands a straight, what's that going to even accomplish at this point? Jan Blachowicz literally has the chin of a blooming statue from Hawaii, where them big bowler head statues, like he literally has a massive bowler head. I've never seen him rocked, so I don't think it's really going to be much use in for him, because he's not going to outstrike Jan Blachowicz here. I think he needs to focus on body kicks and jabs and keeping out of range, and then maybe throwing the odd nasty leg kick himself if he can. But I think Jan's too good to fall for that. I think he's going to really, really capitalise and land some counter shots as he comes in with body kicks. I feel like when the body kicks are thrown, he's going to come back with some nasty straights, and that's where where Sterling's going to have to try and maybe throw some shots, takedowns. If he can get a takedown, it'd be probably the only way to victory here. But I still think he can win a round on the feet, but he just isn't going to be able to get and maintain that when he's fighting someone who's so experienced and can land leg kicks and jabs and straights a lot more frequently than you can, because of the reach and because of the technique and just because of the kind of way that Jan fights. He tends to really tactically break down opponents. For a big guy, he's very, very unrelying on that power he does have. Like when he knocks people out, it's because you've come to him. And that's why I say I don't want to be throwing shots too recklessly against Jan. He wants to try and keep at range and win a points fight. And if he sees the takedown, take it. But he's going to be hitting him with a lot of nasty leg kicks, and at the same time, if he does counter with the body kicks, I can see him getting caught with a straight. So the real only way to win the fight would be the takedowns, but I can't see Jan being taken down once here because his takedown defense is too good. So 29-30 to Jan, but I think that Nevajo's going to possibly try and land some body shots and land some kicks of his own, but I just don't think he's going to be able to avoid getting caught and clipped in there. And I think that Sterling is someone who is very easily read, because he is so technical and schooled fundamentally, like kind of basic, that I think that Jan's not going to have problems beating someone like that. He's fought Ulberg, he's fought Yuri Praska, people like that, not Yuri, sorry, he's fought Ulberg, he's fought Magomed, he's fought a lot of people who are a lot more Israel, you know what I mean, like people who are actually very, very fluent and, hard to predict, and Ankalaev, who's a better wrestler than Navajo is. I don't see Sterling having anything that Jan hasn't seen better of. So I'm going 29-30. Decision win for the GOAT of light heavyweight, in my opinion. I do actually think Jan is one of the top light heavyweights in UFC. Could have easily had a win over Pereira in that split decision, over Ankalaev in that draw, and a win over Ulberg, the current champion. I mean, come on, guys. That was a robbery, the biggest one out of the three. Imagine he'd be on a GOAT run, and then his championship run to get there, and then afterwards winning against Adesanya. He could easily be in a GOAT conversation behind Jones, at light heavyweight. That's a video for another day. I'm annoyed that is not. But anyway, let's get to the next one because I'm going to get. I love Jan. He's a European lightweight goat, and that's good enough for me. Fight for your right, Jan. In there. Moving on to the main event. Medić versus Daniel, the gangster of Mexico, Cojones, Maga Rodriguez. He does support Maga Daniel Rodriguez, believe it or not, even though it looks like he shouldn't. Medić, man, he's on a good win streak. He's a knockout merchant. He's a finishing freak. He's very good to watch. He's highly hyped up. And he's fighting a guy in Daniel Rodriguez, who, in my opinion, actually might be one of the most retarded looking fighters as far as technique goes. Like, I've just discussed technique for the past 5 minutes in the previous fight. And before you go in on me, no, I don't mean he's the GOAT of light heavyweight. John Jones is, but he's one of the GOATs of light heavyweight. Before you guys in the comments say, Jan Blachowicz is better than John Jones. What is this guy talking about? But he is up there in that conversation. I just thought, since we've just kind of segued back into that fight, I'll just make that clear. He's in the top 2, top 3. He's in there with Liddell and Jones, in my opinion. Anyway, Daniel Rodriguez, the Mexican MAGA man. I think Daniel Rodriguez is one of the most retarded looking fighters ever. He throws punches literally like he's scared of throwing them. Like, his head goes down like this. He throws them like he's on UFC 6 and he's landing like one of those crazy bolo shots when your stamina's on low. You know, when you've just got no technique or fluidity and it comes at you so slow. Like, that's how his punches look from bell one. You know, he doesn't throw with any kind of technique or ferocity. He throws them literally out of fear, I feel. Like, get off me! Like, that's literally how he throws punches. Like, it's so weird to watch. Medić, in my opinion, is just a finishing machine. This could really be a crazy finish from Medić where he just takes him out clean with a nasty, crazy spinning elbow finish. Like, I could see it. He's so slow, Medić. It's like, remind me of King Green Hoofy. I can see a spinning elbow. And like I said, that would be like that fight. You know when them fighters get older, slower, and you just see him get knocked out in that crazy fashion. It's like unbelievable, the speed difference, and the new guy comes along. That's what I see Medić doing. Spinning elbow KO, highlight reel finish. Can't wait to see it. He's going to steal the show, and it's going to be like the Prates Magny fight. Thanks for watching, guys. Horn MMA. Enjoy the fights.